And the next example from the World Championship match, Carlsen Anand in Chennai 2013. I want to start at the beginning. There resulted a triangle system, and now not a typical Semislav mainline, but the Marshall gambit. But Magnus has a special idea in mind. The theoretical sharp main lines now continue with a pawn sacrifice, bishop d2, queen takes d4. But Magnus just retreats the knight as sideline, considered to be harmless, and maybe the case, but it poses new interesting problems. And in the game, Magnus manages to keep a slight initiative. And here, in this moment, he has another very unusual idea. Otherwise, Black doesn't have too many problems here. The bishop c8 is not such a big problem and should be solvable in the long run. But Magnus plays queen d3, bring the option of casting long into the position to add more spice to his initiative. Yeah, Wishy halves the bishop pair in the meantime, and we have a very interesting position here. White has a slight initiative, but Black now has compensation, of course, in form of the two bishops and better pawn structure. But okay, Magnus simplifies to an endgame, which again should be more or less balanced. White has a very slight initiative, but really it's definitely not much. Now the bishop is too active, the diagonal must be closed, and so we get another Carlsen endgame. And here it is very important that White has its Zwischenzug, otherwise a draw could be agreed immediately. And so White has a slightly better pawn structure, a slight initiative, a slightly better bishop, the usual conditions, but objectively it should be a draw. Okay, then I just continue with the moves of the game for the moment. Vichy's bishop is not really bad. It protects important squares and can be activated later, so this is not a bad bishop, definitely not. Magnus regroups to activate his rook. Okay, nothing much happens for the moment. But it will be more interesting soon, so. Yeah, Vichy activates all his forces. So in a way, it should be a draw. Black's activity should compensate for the slight structural deficit. To a rook endgame or staying in this Carlsen endgame with double rooks? Of course, staying in the Carlsen endgame. The double rook endgame would be absolutely nothing. Only like this problems can be posed. White's rook is temporarily passive now, but that's not important. Important is that the other rook is active and that White can also activate the other pieces later, most likely again. But you need a very fine feeling for this, of course. G4 is also okay for equality, but nothing wrong with Vichy's opening of the queen side. Yeah, and rook activating the rook. Black is so active that it should be a draw. And here comes a really critical moment. How to defend now with Black? What is easiest? And I think rook a1 is the best defense, and then the game most likely would have ended in a draw very soon. Black is too active. especially as now the a3 pawn can be taken first, and the resulting rook endgame must be drawn. Yeah, rook endings have a very large drawish tendency, and this is no exception. There's not enough winning potential remaining, especially as white also has to deal with black's pawns first. After rook c1 it's already dangerous, but black's activity still gives him a draw. Rook e1 is also sufficient, but might be easier. Rook g1 still draws, but now it's extremely close. Now very good rook ending technique is needed, because white has another Zwischenschach here and can now take. And here black has only one difficult move to draw. Magnus has again posed so much problems that it is now already very, very deep and difficult how to go into the direction of Vancouver's famous draw. Rook e2 is the only move to draw. And then one idea is like this, to reach the famous Vancouver setup, the draw against the rook's pawns. Now the computer even suggests this, of course, to reach the table base as soon as possible, and black has reached the Vancouver textbook draw. And rook e2 is only the only move here, according to the computer, to still defend the position. King e6 is a mistake, as now the king is caught in the middle of nowhere, and Vancouver's draw is no longer possible due to a4, a5, and if the king would come back, then black would have Vancouver's draw. But this cuts the route into the Vancouver drawing zone, a7 and b7, and now black's king cannot deal with neither of the pawns, and so it's over. The a pawn comes and the king cannot deal with it alone. The king needs the help of the rook, and this is a bad sign, as now white wins with the two rook's pawns sooner or later. Again, a fine technical achievement by Magnus Carlsen. He made more and more pressure, and here he of course stayed in this endgame configuration with bishop b1, stayed in the Carlsen endgame. And then it was more and more difficult. Here maybe for Visciana and rook a1 would have been a better, easier defense. And then it gets more and more difficult. Here we had seen rook g1, we didn't look at rook e1. Maybe it's easier, but already it needs very precise calculation. It is then in the sense easier that it is more active, more in Vichy Anand's style, not needing a Vancouver draw, but drawing by active counterplay. From that respect, more in Vichy's style might have been rook e1, but it already needs, of course, very precise calculation, which is quite difficult and quite a big decision. And rook g1 draws as well, as we have seen. The mistake which then tipped the balance came in this moment. Rook e2 still draws due to the large drawing tendency of rook endings and, for example, Vancouver's draw against both whites' rook's pawns.